Hey guys, what's up? It's Baldo with another Escape from Tarkov video. This video we're going to be going over the DT MDR variants of the 5.56 and 308 rifles. The 5.56 and 308 rifles are oftentimes considered some of the most expensive calibers to shoot in the game because the ammo is so expensive, and oftentimes it takes a lot of rubles or US dollars to get the guns to the point where they are effective at shooting fully automatic. Now this doesn't necessarily need to be the case. My question is it more feasible to shoot the DT MDR variants of these calibers than it is to shoot other more commonly considered meta variants of these rifles? Now, I do stream Escape from Tarkov 2 to 3 times a week on Twitch. The link for that will be down below. I also want to invite you guys to join the Discord community. It's a great place to go to meet some new people, hop into some raids, get some help on some tasks, learn a little bit about the game, maybe teach a little bit yourself. But either way, if you end up joining the community, make sure to hit that green check mark on the Welcome Here page. That way I know you understand the rules and I will open access to every other channel in the Discord. With all that boring stuff out of the way, let's hop into the comparisons. So I really went back and forth in my own mind with how I wanted to lay this video out. I wanted to make these comparisons as even as possible while still maintaining some kind of a control over it, just to show very equal comparisons. So what I decided to do was take the DT MDR variants of these calibers and deck them out as much as possible and make them as meta as I possibly can. The reason I chose to use these over the M4 and the SA58 as the control was because there are far fewer mods you can make. For example, the M4 and the SA58, you can change the buttstock and the buffer tube and the barrel shrouds, and on the MDRs you can't. The most you can do is a foregrip, a muzzle brake, and a sight, and that's really all you can do to it. So what I did was I took those, decked them out as much as I could, and then I'm going to go look at the total cost. And what I did was I took the maximum cost for each one of the DT MDR rifles, and I allotted myself that many rubles to spend on the M4 and on the SA58 to see what I could get the best possible settings for that price. So let's see what I came up with. Okay, so this is what I came up with the DT MDR. And this is also including the price of the gun itself, and all the dollars have already been converted into rubles for the maximum cost of 351,500. Now you have to keep in mind this is also with max traders for everything. So if you're a little bit lower level, you don't have your max traders, that's going to be quite a bit more expensive. But this also includes the price of the gun in case you don't have one if you can't find one in raid. So what I took was 351,000, and I used that to go build an M4. Now these prices may vary just because the prices on the market change, but as for the ones that are contracted to the vendors themselves, those won't change, those won't go up or down. So let's see what I can come up with the M4 for that price. Alright, and here's what I came up with the M4. I did go a little bit over, but not too much, only about 30,000. And again, prices change just a little bit. For instance, you might be able to find a M4A1 for about 50K usually. So they're a little bit higher right now. So these prices will change, but I don't feel 30,000 was too much of a discrepancy for it. So let's go take a look at the stats on each one of these and compare these that way. So for just about the same amount of rubles, you can see that the stats aren't too far off. It is about 13 higher on the vertical recoil, about 50 higher on the horizontal recoil, but that doesn't make as big of a difference as you would think because the fire rate is substantially lower on the DT MDR. What that means is your gun has more time to reset position before the next round is fired. So yes, the recoil is higher, but it compensates with a lower rate of fire. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take these both into the hideout, and I'm going to blast through 30 rounds each. We'll do one first, then the other, then we'll do the same footage shooting at the exact same time. So you can see what the recoil patterns are. Now I'm not going to do any mouse control on this at all. I'm just going to click the fire button aimed at the farthest target in the hideout and see what we come up with. So let's go ahead and take a look at that, and then we're going to do the exact same process for the 7.62x51 variants. All right, now this is going to be the first one, the DT MDR 5.56x45. Again, we're not doing any recoil control. I'm just holding the fire button down and letting it go where it goes. Now we're going to do the same thing for the M4A1. 5.56x45. Again, we're not doing any recoil control. I'm just holding the fire button down and letting it go where it goes. Now we're going to do the same thing for the M4A1. 5.56x45. All right, now we'll take a look at them both side by side. Right, as you can see that even though the recoil numbers were a little bit higher on the MDR variant of the 5.56, the recoil pattern was actually a little bit more manageable when you weren't even trying to manage it. Now imagine if you were actually trying to control that recoil a little bit better. And it did end up being about 30,000 rubles less than the M4. And I will say that coming across the MDR variants of the 5.56 are much more common on Raider spawns than M4A1s are. So you're going to come across those guns a lot more frequently. Now, let's do the same exact process for the 7.62x51 variants and see what we can come up with that. This is what I came up with the MDR for the 7.62x51 variant. This price might be a little bit misleading because the suppressor I ended up using is unavailable at this point. So we're going to add 140,000 rubles onto this to make it 390, because that's about what that suppressor runs, is 140,000 rubles. So we're going to make that 390, and then we're going to go see what we can do with the SA58. Because the SA58 isn't running that suppressor, it'll be a much truer price. Okay, and here's the SA58. Again, something's up. For some reason, won't let me see what the price for this DS Arms quad rail is. I just went and looked at the flea market. It's running about 15,000. So we're going to go with another 15,000 on top of this, and that would put us at about 365. That being said, this is fully decked out. You cannot get the stats any better on this than it currently is. That's the same thing with the DT MDR 7.62x51 variant. So for a little bit of a price difference, you can have the absolute best of each one of these guns. But let's compare the stats and compare the firing on them. Okay, so as you can see by the numbers on here, there is really nothing that you can get from the SA that you really can't get from the DT MDR. Now, your horizontal recoil is quite a bit lower on the SA, but your vertical is quite a bit lower on the DT MDR. The biggest difference that I see is that the effective distance is really almost half on the DT MDR than what it is on the SA58. Now, that being said, the effective range is 900 meters on that and 500 meters on the MDR. The farthest I have ever shot something is 403 meters, period. That's the furthest I've ever engaged a target, and that was from one side of the woods as far as you can see on the other. I was sitting on the dock on woods and shot all the way up to Sniper Rock, killed the sniper scav up there. That's 403 meters. That is a huge shot. You will never get a sight line further than that. So that difference is minuscule. It might look big, but it really doesn't mean a whole lot. But you also have to think on these, I have tried to maintain what the intended purpose of these calibers are. The 7.62x51 is a middle to long range rifle, and the 5.56x45 is a short to middle range rifle. So obviously I put better optics on the 7.62s. I focus a little bit more on the ergo than the recoil, which you can't really tell by the SA just because ergo's hard to build on that gun. It really is. So I just went with what I could get the best on that one. But now we're going to take these both into the hideout and do the same thing that we did for the 5.56s. I'm going to shoot the full 20 rounds, crouched, aiming at the farthest target, no recoil control with the MDR, and then I'm going to switch over to the SA58, and we can compare from there. All right, this is the DT MDR with the Voodoo sight on it. Again, we're not going to do any kind of recoil control. That's the full 20 rounds, pretty much on target. Here we are with the SA doing the same thing. Now, as you saw on the 7.62x51, that it seemed to me anyways, the DT MDR had far better recoil control than the SA58, despite having much, much higher horizontal recoil. But that goes to show you that the vertical recoil control is much more important than your horizontal. That's the number you really want to focus on. Obviously, you want to get both as low as possible, but the vertical is the primary issue with that. So I suppose the question now stands: is the DT MDR variant of either the 5.56 or the 7.62 by 51 feasible to use over what would be considered the meta builds for each of those calibers. And in my opinion, yes. Just because I went fully decked out on both those MDRs doesn't mean you have to. If you just take off the suppressor and add a different muzzle brake, you can get almost the same recoil control. Yes, you're going to be loud, but you're also going to be saving near 200,000 rubles doing it that way. And that is a huge savings. Plus, like I said, you're going to come across the DT MDRs much more often than you are M4A1s or HKs in raid. So overall, you're going to be spending less money trying to build those. And to be honest with you, if I found both in a raid, I would take the DT MDR over the M4A1 or the HK just because they're more fun to use for me. I don't know why. Maybe it's because nobody else uses them and I like to play a little off the wall on it. But in the 5.56, I definitely think it's feasible, even if it's not technically the best. Now, as far as 7.62 by 51, I think the DT MDR variant is better than what would be considered your meta fully automatic versions of that gun other than the DT MDR, whether that be the SA or, oh man, I really think the SA58 is the only fully automatic variant of that caliber aside from the DT MDR. I mean, yeah, you have your M1s, you have your RSASs and all of those, but I think that's the only one that, off the top of my head, that is fully automatic of that besides the DT MDR. So in that case, I definitely think the DT MDR is the better option because there's no sight lines you're going to need that extra 400 meter reach for that you get from that SA58. It's going to be a little bit cheaper. Well, it's going to be about the same price to build if you go fully meta. And again, I think it's just a little bit more fun to use. As you could see, the ergonomics was triple that of the SA58 when you're using the DT MDR. That means you can hold your breath longer, which for those longer range engagements, that's awesome. You can hold your ADS longer, and your turning speed's better. So overall, I think when it comes to the 7.62 by 51, it is the better option no matter what. And either one's going to be pretty hard to find, honestly. I think you find the SA58s more whenever you're fighting raiders than you do the 7.62 by 51 DT. But you can get those for about 100,000 rubles on the flea market. And to me, they're worth every penny of it. But guys, I think that's going to do it for this video. Go ahead and leave a comment what you think. Do you like the MDR variants? And if you do, is it because you think they're better, or is it because you have more fun using them? I love to hear what you guys have to say. If you have any suggestions for further videos, also throw that down in the comments or hop in the Discord that I mentioned at the beginning of the video. But with all that being said, can't wait to see you in the next one.